In policy debate, the flow is the name given to a specialized form of note-taking or shorthand, which debaters use to keep track of all of the arguments in the round. You will need two pieces of paper. One will be the start of the AF notes, and one will be the start of the neg. We will now have a practice debate and practice our flowing, starting with the AF case.
I affirm the resolution that the state of California should increase funding to build a high-speed rail. Contention 1 is that carbon emissions would decrease. First, we can see that the high-speed rail is supposed to be constructed with net zero emissions and operate 100% from renewable energy. This means they would be way more efficient than the gas-guzzling cars that currently operate on our highway system. What the impact of this would be more biodiversity and less climate change because we'd see a decrease in carbon emissions. Moreover, we can see that there'd be more cars moving off the highways. Currently, car fatalities are one of the biggest causes of death in California. So if more people are using the safer high-speed rail, there'd be fewer deaths due to car accidents. There would also be a decreased loss in productivity that naturally comes from traffic and car accidents. Finally, we can also see that technology that will be used to construct other high-speed rails would see a decreasing emissions from the current high-speed rail. One high-speed rail on its own does not save the world. So what we can see is we need to implement this in California so that the rest of the United States can do it too.
As you can see, we have the AF case here. We will now begin the neg flow on the other piece of paper. You can pause it here to review what you have written versus what I've written and see how anything can be changed. Hi, I'm Neg for the state of California should increase funding to build a high-speed rail. Our first contention of why California shouldn't increase funding to build a high-speed rail is because it adds to state debt. The current debt is really high in California, and this will lead to a distrust in bonds. As well, California will not have the money to spend on other projects such as homelessness prevention, affordable housing, and education. Our second contention is that it hurts farm workers. The high-speed rail inevitably has to go through farms, and undocumented workers will be let go. Our third contention is corruption. No one wants a high-speed rail in politics except for Jerry Brown. The train will lose money and will not get the money back in investments. The high-speed rail will most likely need subsidies and or will lose funding in the future. And our fourth and last contention is that it's not affordable. Wealthy people will be the ones who take this train, and it is not much cheaper than a car or a plane, so people will not be inclined to take it. We now, on the other piece of paper, have the flow of the neg case, including the four contentions that were in the neg case, as well as the subpoints. On to the AF case. They said that carbon emissions would decrease, but this is actually not true because people wouldn't use the train, so it would just inevitably be a waste of money because they would be spending a ton of money to build this transit, but in the long run people wouldn't be using it. Because the neg also responded to the AF case, on the other piece of paper where we wrote the AF flow, you will also respond to the contentions of the AF case. The neg here responded to the first contention of the AF case, so in the second column, they wrote what they responded. Again, you can pause it here to make sure that you have written down the correct contentions and information.
First, addressing the neg's arguments. First, they say that this would add to the state debt. But what we can actually see is that California's debt has gone down over the previous years, and the high-speed rail would cause a net economic growth. This would mean there'd be more money in the economy, and thus more taxes, which would help in solving our debt. Next, they talk about hurting farm workers. The problem with this is they created the high-speed rail in a way which would minimize harm to farm workers as much as possible. Also, they have plans to compensate farms that do have to have their land taken away and resettle them elsewhere. Next, they talk about corruption. We can see that many Democrats other than Jerry Brown want a high-speed rail. In fact, the people who oppose it are mainly Republicans who just fear spending money. And finally, they say it's not affordable, but they would specifically have subsidies to ensure that everyone can afford the trip from San Francisco to LA. Now, on to the affirmatives case. They respond to our carbon emissions point by simply saying that carbon emissions wouldn't go down because no one used it. But we see people actually would use it because it would be cheaper than flying to LA and it would also be more efficient and more environmentally friendly. Even if one person uses it though, that is still better than no one using it in terms of helping our environment.
After the AF case responds to the neg case, the neg team here will write down exactly how the neg team responded to the AF's points. As you see in the second column here, they responded to each one of the contentions. As well, when they're done going over those points, they will go over how this is what the responses the AF will have based on what the neg side said. The team responded to their initial contentions. So as you can see in the third column here, they are responding to how the neg team responded to their first contention, and they are going back on their initial points of how they believe that the high-speed rail is in fact a good investment. This is the neg and the AF responses more zoomed in.